you grow up learning how to do things the neurotypical way. That's what you learn in class. And like, that's how people teach you, but it doesn't really work for your brain. So you kind of MacGyver it and you pretend that it works for you. And then after I realized I had ADHD and autism, I was like, oh, like I kind of have to relearn a lot of these life skills, like having a cleaning schedule, um, by learning how it works for me. And that took some time, and I do ADHD coaching. But I'm definitely interested to hear about how you guys have kind of like navigated kind of teaching yourself life skills after you've become more aware of your diagnosis.
I think even like the diagnosis is separate than like the learning of the life skills, because even though like I knew I was like divergent in that way, I didn't really connect it to my whole life all the time and everything that I did. Um, and definitely with the ADHD, just not wanting routines and kind of always wanting to be on the go, different ideas. It wasn't until I think my brain developed more that I could even slow down enough to like look around me and realize like, oh, I need to do these things regularly, so I should plan it into like a schedule.
The schedule is my best friend right now because of my also working memory issues. So without the schedule, I feel lost and completely like in the midst of chaos. But I think what's very important, what you mentioned, Ali, self-awareness is like a starting point for me at least to build this, and also self-compassion. Because without self-compassion, you don't have this drive to do it your own way. For example, for me, reading books was very oppressive towards my brain. Like you have to read one at a time. You have to read it from the first page to the last page in this sequence. And now I let myself read 10 at once, depending on my mood. And also I can jump from chapter to chapter, whatever feels more appealing. And in the past, I would criticize myself for such behavior.
Yeah, that's interesting. And kind of going off too is like both, learning how to schedule is like we don't um we don't necessarily want it, but we need it. And then also being okay because we're non-linear in the way that we understand things. So like that's kind of like, okay, I have to have a schedule even though I don't want it. So kind of accepting that, but then the next one being like, yeah, I don't have to read a book in order. For me, in terms of a schedule, I learned the hard way that I really can't plan more than a month in advance. Like I would try to plan more than that. Really, a week is ideal. And that if I like schedule things by the day, like I would never know what my energy level was. So what I'm doing now is like during the day of the week I meet with my ADHD coach, a lot of times we'll go through a lot of the action steps and I'll put them on like a big piece of paper on my bulletin board. And then I'll wake up every day and be like, okay, what do I have the energy to complete today? And then I usually get it all done. But if I like put it by like I'm like, okay, I'll do this Thursday or Wednesday, unless it's like an anchor thing, like a class, I would be really upset with myself for not being able to do it on
Mm-hmm.
Wednesday,
Mm-hmm.
even if I still did it on Tuesday or Thursday. And I think like you, Justina, like I grew up reading the ends of books first. I don't know if that was my anxiety, but I was like, I don't want to read this book if it's gonna end badly. So I would just read the end first and then go back and read the beginning. Um, and I feel like, what are some things to kind of accept? And I realized that like, yeah, my living area might always be a little bit messier. And for me, I used to think cleaning my room was like I have to deep clean my room, but now my definition of cleaning is like the floor is clean because the floor didn't used to be clean. Like I mean, it would be embarrassing to go back before, but like I would be so overwhelmed thinking I'd have to deep clean my room that I just wouldn't do it. And now when I'm just like the floor has to be clean, I usually clean up the whole thing. So I'm interested to know, like, Ray and Justina, like, how do you do your schedules? And like, yeah, what are some other things that you've kind of just accepted to kind of that work with your brain better, like different. tools?
Oh, my schedule is really mine. I don't need fancy planners. I just need usual one day the page per day. And what I found really relieving, like when you said about this board that you have and that you erase things that you don't have energy for. What I do is I find really satisfying to tick off the things I did. It's like my dopamine hit. But at the same time, when I don't do something, I stopped punishing myself for that, and I'm just making a bracket, and that means this is the task for the next days. And however I feel, I can postpone it and postpone it unless it's a fixed appointment or something like that. And that really works for me. And also I plan mm, per month because of the coaching I do. But uh, but I look at every day separately. So I wake up, I look at my schedule, and I don't go into the future because that would be overwhelming.
Yeah. And I think that's important because I feel like we shame ourselves so much, and I feel like so much of that shame goes away once we like are more aware of our brain. And then Ray, how do you kind of schedule yourself?
Um, I definitely was a planner person for a very long time. I don't have a 2025 planner right now, but I do have a calendar
Mm.
that I keep track. And then I started doing when I was doing coaching last year, I made a Google Doc for each month, and it was a running to-do list and also like things that I did in the day. So I had the each day, and then I wrote like the things that I did that were significant. And if I didn't get to something, I had like a pending to-do list at the bottom. I had like more of a creative area where I wanted to do those elements. And so I'd kind of move them around. And so I'd move through each day just because I needed to be able to keep track of like I am being productive. I mean, I was in school, I was doing a lot of stuff, but like just submitting assignments and it feels like I'm getting somewhere, but
Yeah.
actually you don't really know. I don't know. There's no like checkbox thing, so I had to make my own checkboxes. But that was really helpful because it gave me the opportunity to like move things a day down or and learned how to break up tasks. Like even though I think it's one day, like I'm gonna do this thing in one day, in reality it's like three different tasks.
Mhm.
Like sometimes even if it's like getting something to ship to someone, first you have to find the item, then you have to like box the item and get their address, and then you go to the mailbox, and it's like taking into consideration that although it seems like a simple task, sometimes it's like three tasks in
Yeah.
one.
Yeah.
And definitely a visual kind of person. So sometimes if I'm like moving something to somewhere or I'm giving something back to someone or taking something out of the house, I take it out and leave it by the door or like somewhere in my eyesight, like
Mhm.
um,
Mhm.
some kind of visual like to do, like sticky note with the grocery list or whatever, because I need to see it. Because sometimes I'll just like it'll slide from my mind. Um, but yeah, I think like I am always a good month person. I do like to plan like months in advance. I think I'm really big picture, and if I get too like narrowed in, then that's where I start to block myself off because I don't know how I feel hour to hour, but I'll kind of get the gist of what I should be doing month to month.
When you said about this processing modalities like visual, I
Mhm.
thought that I would hate I'm not saying never, but I would hate I always hated the calendar in the computer or in phone
Hmm.
because it's just not my thing. I'm very tactile, so I have to write it
Hmm.
down, have it in my diary, have it with me. And but I'm also visual, and I wanted to ask you, guys, do you like, are you, do you do your vision board every year, or have you ever
I
tried it?
want to do one this year.
You
Like I
want to
don't
do
do
one?
one, but I want to do one.
Mm.
I love to what's it called? Like cut and paste. I have all the things I'll show you. These are the ones that I like got prepped. I just need to find a board to put them all on, but like I
Wow.
already cut them out.
What?
I love to do like collages. So I do have it in the making, but I have to find like I don't want to just put it on like a poster board because then I'm just going to end up with a poster board in my house. So
Mhm.
I don't know. I'm trying to figure out how to put it like an artistic
Great.
way.
It's a great
Maybe even
idea.
resin would be a cool idea. I don't know.
Resin would
It's
be
very
cool. Or
creative of
like
you.
I could see you like putting it on almost like decoupaging some, it could be like an art piece, like a wood something.
Yeah, like something already because I have just like the collages on paper and I've done that where I put it on the wall, but it doesn't feel like finished in some way. It's like kind of unpolished, just like cut and paste on a board.
Like Mod Podge. In my sorority, we did that all
Yeah.
the time. Yeah.
But yeah, I
There's
love vision. What about you, Justine? Do you vision
I
board?
would love to make one, but I'm just too lazy. I have to, it's really difficult for me to start a new type of task. And you don't,
Hmm.
I've done vision board before, but to make it once a year, I think I would have to do it like once a quarter or something like that. Because once a year it means like, oh, it's such a big task, 1 year, what I want to achieve, and I feel overwhelmed. So I think I might do even paint something every quarter or every month, just some little drawing. And maybe I have to figure out my life hack for vision boards, definitely, because it's hard to start.
Hmm.
Well, I think it's interesting because all three of us have ADHD, but we all have different processing styles. And I think even that's really something to pay attention to. And writing is my processing style for a lot of people with ADHD. It's verbal processing, which can for me it's confusing because I'm like I need to see it on paper. So really thinking, okay, what's my processing style? Like how have I absorbed things in the past? Because school really teaches one way, but there's kinetic learning, there's like nine different types of learning and like think about which one is best for you. And I think we kind of talked about this last week. Speaking of ADHD, is like communication and like masking is so hard. And I do remember like at the office, like talking with other ADHD people, and there's a flow. And I've had people before complain about my voice, not in counseling, but like in life and be like, wow, you talk too fast. You're like, and it's hard because I have with the Adderall like reduced because yeah, I used to say a lot of impulsive things where I'm like, oh, that was bad to say. And that would help me. And I'd be like, think about it. Like we learned pause. Like if you want to send or say something like wait 24 hours, and then I'd be like, oh, maybe not. But like for me, part of it's like, yeah, I'm always gonna talk what do you call it, hyper verbally. Like no matter how much Adderall I'm on, there's only a certain amount. I think for me it's like not impulsively saying something hurtful. But yeah, it's when people get frustrated with like my speed and I try to slow down. My therapy professors did their best to make me practice talking slowly. But what do you guys feel about that? Like, how is any like tricks for communication? For me, it's like if it's something that could be hurtful or like, you know, if you're like, I'd quit this and you want to like, how do you guys handle that communication?
You start, Ray.
I think it's an interesting area because I definitely feel like I know what you're talking about, like learning the skills and learning how to refine my mask and be able to, especially in professional settings, like look someone in the eye and like regulate my face and like make sure that I'm like not doing something fidgety with my hands and I'm like looking very engaged and I'm like very aware of my body everything. I'm just very aware. And I know that I'm doing well. Like I am doing very good as far as how communication styles should be. And then reflecting back on the past or like when I'm very comfortable, like I'm typically like looking at all these other things. Like, am I looking at this person? Especially in the past, it used to be that I'd be talking to someone, but then I'd always like look behind them because I was just like interested in whatever was going on behind them. I like lost interest in even if I was listening to them, I just like look behind them. And so people would always like look back as if I was like,
Yeah.
signaling for them to like look back too, but it was really that I was always drifting eye contact. and like
Yeah.
something was catching my attention. Um, and like I sometimes I can be a bit tangential, like I'm just chatting about something and I'm kind of sharing my opinions, and I've so many opinions, so many ideas, um, that I've really had to learn in some domains I can't do that, but when I'm comfortable, like I do that. And I do like interrupt people all the time. And I'm always like kind of moving a lot, using my hands. Like, so there's a way that I've learned to mask it and be professional and be appropriate in different contexts. But then there's who I am. And I think that's where the compassion comes in with like, I don't need to change who I am. I know how to present when presenting is important. And I know when to distinguish like those situations from each other. But I understand that I'm going to have to be professional in settings, and that feels very different than who I am, like naturally underneath.
Yeah.
And I get that in order to live in the world, sometimes I have to do like something different to, you know, the social norms.
Yeah, no, that's true. It's like there should be some areas where you can communicate freely. And for me, like, if I was in therapy and someone's like, wow, you talk really fast, I'd be like, I would try to slow down. But if it's like, I think actually this was an old therapist a while ago, like within the last 10 years, that told me that I talked too fast and that I would need to change. And for me, that felt wrong because I was like, therapy should be a safe place to communicate. And I was like, that was like the one area where I was like, I didn't stay with them for long, but I was like, yeah, in therapy, I feel like that's probably a sign of not a good fit. But yeah, if like you're in a professional setting and someone's like, oh, like I can't, I would do my best. But yeah, it's like one of those complicated compromises I think we make is like, maybe we don't need to wear our mask all the time. It's like a compromise. Um, but yeah, Justina, how is like, and Justina, like multiple languages too. So I wonder like, there's a lot more for you to remember because I feel like we were talking about in Poland how like in America, like you were expected to greet people and like smile and randomly. And for me, that's like really now we're kind of going into the small talk, but I feel like people think I'm very cold when I go into places and I'm just like, I don't like small talk. Like I don't want to do that. And like when I'm walking my dog, a lot of times I'm like, oh, like the car driving by, like I should wave and say hi. And it's like in different countries, there are different customs for that. So it's like it's a little more complicated for you having
Yeah,
the
I
multiple
lived
languages.
in, of course, I was in United States, and it's to the brim.
Yeah.
You have to be cheerful and how are you? I'm great and stuff like that. So I found this a little bit overwhelming in United States. I lived in England for a while, and I will never forget when you were passing someone on the street and they would give you a smile, and it would be like that. And I always wondered why you show such dishonest face, because in Poland we are really cold and you wouldn't. So it's another extreme situation, which I don't like either, because then it's like, but for example, right now I'm in Australia, and here it's really nice because you can give a smile to a person on the street, but at the same time, it's not too overwhelming. So that's what I really like this balance. And I always also try to give this smile because it uplifts my mood as well. But yeah, Poland is more harsh, and America was a little bit too much for me. So I think we should find wherever we are, we should find our balance. So I might come back to Poland and just give a little smile to people who I'm passing by.
Yeah.
But I also thought about what Ray said about professional setting and feeling comfortable. My opinion is that for myself, it's good to find a balance between this mask that you put on in professional setting and the feeling comfortable because I found out a long time ago that I was really good on putting a mask. For example, on during interview, I was going to an interview, and if I wanted a job, I was pretty much sure I will get it. But then it started to be so exhausting to keep this mask, that my real self would really, really disrupt my image, which I created at the beginning. So now I find that it's good to find this balance, being professional, but at the same time, not forcing yourself too much to show your false self or somebody who you're not, because later you will sort of be a prisoner of your own creation. That's what I wanted to add.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Because masking does burn, and you want to pick a job that's like very, um, not too much of a mask. Like I feel like for me, it'd be like, oh, I'm gonna, go and work in tax, the IRS. That would be a lot of masking for me. Like my sleep is so, um, it's something that I've worked trying to work, and I've had points where I've done really well by going to bed at 8, waking up at 4, but that never, like that always gets disrupted. I do feel like, I used to take exercise classes really early in the morning, and that did help. Like the classes did help me have a sleep schedule, but like it's never like I'm a very light sleeper and I toss and I turn and I wake up in the middle of the night. Like it's hard for me. The only thing I've found is like having a class in the morning. But have you guys figured out the sleep thing?
I think the sleep thing's my like lifelong, like the cross that I have to bear. Sleep doesn't come easy for me. Just because I'm definitely a night person. My brain just like at 9 o'clock, there is like something that happens where there's a second wind that comes through. So that's just the way it is. But I've done lots of different things. If I start working out in the morning, so if the first thing that I do is work out, then over time I'll wake up energized and want to get out of bed. So that's like the biggest hack. The other things I do, I like set an alarm every morning. Even if I don't get out of bed, it wakes me up at that time. So I naturally will wake up at that time. And the hope is that if I wake up earlier, then I'll like fall asleep or get sleepy earlier. But I think really being honest with myself, I work best off less sleep, but I could sleep for a very long time.
Mhm.
So if I'm like forced to wake up and like function off little sleep, I function like so much sharper. Like if there's a strong like I'm very alert and ready for the day and like but then if I do sleep in, then there's like a dullness to my waking. So sleep is something that honestly I'm like when I think about my like romantic life, my partnership, future partnership, I'm really hoping like that helps to co-regulate my sleep because I think on my own, I can definitely, it's hard to find routine sleep for me.
Yeah, I right now I don't have problems with sleeping, but I had in the past I was sleeping few hours per night, like 4 or 5, and I couldn't sleep more, and I was waking up like you, Ellie, at 4, but I was going to bed at 12.
Yeah.
So it was sort of nice to have this whole morning for myself and also do some morning routines that I really enjoy because I'm the morning person, not a night owl, definitely. So I think my life hack would be find joy in what this disrupted sleep gives you. So you have to wake up in the morning. Don't force yourself. Oh my God, I didn't sleep. Just do something valuable for yourself during this time.
For me, like a big issue was overspending. Like before I really got control of my ADHD, it got really bad during the pandemic because I had all that overtime money. Um, but yeah, for me, my trick for that was now I run everything through my sister. And she tells me how ugly it is, and then I don't buy it. But yeah, it used to be a huge issue. And I feel like, um, for you guys, are there any habits that like you try? I realize like my overspending issue, like, and I would be hard for me to track money. Like, I realize I'm like, oh, that's connected to ADHD. Are there any issues that you realize after that you're like, oh, I've struggled with that because of my ADHD or autism?
Mm.
Definitely buying books for me. It's a disaster how much money I spent on books, and not all of them are read. But just yesterday, my life hack was I stopped going to bookstores. I started to go to library, so I saved a lot of money going to library. But another thing, just yesterday I was in a bookstore and I felt very bad. I had like a bad day, and I needed some comfort. So in
Hey,
this
sometimes you do.
moment, I just let myself, okay, let's buy it just for comforting yourself. You don't have to be so strict on that.
Yeah, you gotta have those like cheat days, I think.
Because
No.
I think for me, most of the things that I try spend money on, and I never feel like it's a waste, it's travel and experiences, which is very tied to ADHD. But
Like a
yeah,
positive.
I have no material things don't really do it for me. It's definitely like, is it an experience that I'm like putting my money towards? And if it's that, then there is no limit. Like, so that's a problem, right? Because I'm valuing, and it scatters my life up because I'm always planning a trip or something, some kind of experience where there's not routine because I always am looking for something novel and like different. Um, and so yeah, my finances were always like spent on that. So there was no routine on like saving for like long term. There was no long term planning. It was just like I want to experience like happy fun times. And then tomorrow I'll figure out like the next day from there. So yeah, definitely just being very travel oriented stops you from saving.
Well, it's like, I don't know, and this is bad, like the dopamine, like even if it came, it was like the part, and probably this goes with travel too. It's like you're looking forward to reading that book or going on the trip, and it's almost for me like buying it because I was big into clothes. And Amazon, I bought a lot of stupid stuff on there. It was like, oh, I'm like getting the package and waiting for it, and then it comes, and
Mhm.
I'd be like, oh, this isn't what I thought it would
Mhm.
be. And then I go and do the walk of shame in the post office to return it. If I returned it, and I got a lot better at that
I
because I have my
think
pile of returns.
Mhm. A good life hack for that would be treat it as a reward for doing
Mhm.
something important.